Hey friends, it's Melvin. Thanks for tuning into this episode. Here's just a few quick things I wanted to notify you guys about before we get started. First up, very soon, new episodes will be releasing Wednesday mornings rather than Tuesday. So don't panic if you don't see a new episode on Tuesday. Just wait a little longer and you'll see it in your feed. Second, we've introduced a mailbag. Check those show notes and toward the bottom you'll see a mailbag link. You'll then be able to text us any questions you might have about movies, the movie industry, or any movie/Christian related questions you might have. Then we'll respond in a future episode, so send us your questions now. Up next, Patreon polls, which are available to Patreon supporters at the $3 tier or higher, have been updated. Supporters can now suggest films or shows to be reviewed at the end of each month. The two most liked submissions will become the options for the Patreon poll, so if you want to hear us talk about your favorite movie or show, join our Patreon and start campaigning. And lastly, whether you're a new or longtime listener, please consider writing a review or rating the Cinematic Doctrine podcast on iTunes and Spotify. Apart from financially supporting on Patreon, these are the two most helpful ways to support the show. And that's it. Enjoy the episode. Hey again, this episode is part 1 of 2, as the original recording length came in at a whopping 3.5 hours. When you're finished with this one, search for part 2 in your podcast app, assuming it's out already. You're listening to Cinematic Doctrine. Hey, or normal listeners. Normal? Are you normal? I don't know.
Like our
normal.
abnormal Patreon supporters.
Hey, if it's Halloween, abnormal's good. Hey, abnormal, weird, spooky listeners. You just missed out on 33 minutes of talking about cool Christianity and kind of the...
I had a really specific thought on cool Christianity that I totally blanked on sharing.
Well, hey, how about this? This is a little teaser. If you support on Patreon, you get the full thing. $3 a month. It's pretty exciting. You get to choose what movies we review on the podcast, such as this one, Hangman's Curse, was selected by our Patreon supporters. But Daniel has a layover thought, so let's get that little teaser in there. What is it?
Here's a specific issue I have with the concept of cool counterculture Christianity, which is particularly when it's marketed to young people and teenagers and like middle schoolers, which is you cannot turn Christianity into a cool thing that they like, because what is cool is constantly changing, and especially as a young person, what you think is cool is constantly changing.
Yes.
And what you've done is you've inadvertently connected their faith in God to a particular phase of their life. I used to be like that when I was a teenager.
Yes.
And where I realized this really great point is, from all places, the animated television show King of the Hill, where there is a great episode where Bobby joins a cool youth group where the youth pastor has dreadlocks and plays guitar. And it's pretty good episode of the show, but at the end of the episode, Hank Hill takes Bobby to their garage and he opens up a box of all the things that I used to think were cool. He's got like a Tamagotchi in there, he's action figures, and this is in King of the Hill. He looks at Bobby and says, "I don't want God to end up in this box someday."
Oh, cute.
Which is sweet. Which is a really strong theological point.
Wow.
from Mr. Mike Judge. So.
Wow, that's amazing. I want to see that episode now.
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
There's going to be a 20-year reboot, and he's going to go to the box, and he's going to find a propane tank in it, and he's going to freak out. It's like, no, Bobby!
There, he won't find a Bible, and that's how you know he was a good father.
Yeah, he was able to die to himself. Carry his cross laced in propane. Yeah, that's the good stuff, guys. When you support on Patreon, you get that. But I guess you get it now because you just press play anyway. But yeah, it's all the good stuff. You'll hear all the other benefits for supporting on Patreon throughout the episode. I have them laced throughout. So, but you press play because you wanted to hear about Hangman's Curse, a movie you did not know existed, and I don't think anybody knows existed. And Amazon thinks I am the #1 fan because it specifically told me I bought 3 copies when I went to the page to see how much it was.
You bought
listed
3
for.
copies of this movie?
I had to buy it for me. It's not streaming anywhere. That's also why I want us to explain the movie. It almost.
Did you send a copy to both me and Melanie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, because it's kind of cute. Now you get this movie on your shelf. This would be a little memento. Although I don't know how long Dan's is going to last. Daniel, do you want to describe the condition that your copy came in? The one that is supposed to be new?
This was new?
When I purchased it, okay, pardon. It wasn't new. Although Melanie's was new and did not come with the devotional, which is weird.
Oh, was it shrink wrapped?
It was.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yours didn't. You said yours did not come with a devotional, but mine.
No devotional.
What a spoiler for this! But I have a devotional that came with mine. We'll get into that at the end of the episode,
which is really crazy. Like when you mentioned that, I was like, "Oh, that's kind of funny." But after watching the movie, it's just like a very crazy thought to me.
It's very.
I'm just really curious what's in it.
Just a bunch of tips about spider care.
So yeah, stick around the episode to hear that. But yours, Daniel, yours condition, I think it was listed as like new or lightly used, but yours is not.
New. So first off, on the box, there's stickers from 4 different stores that this was purchased at.
Wow.
So you have the original brand new. You have
new to us.
a sticker from a secondhand store, a sticker from Thrift Books, a sticker from Savers. So
people are watching this movie and then they're getting rid of it.
Yeah, yes. I like to imagine that all these people watched it and were like, time to donate it.
Right.
But that devotion was good. I'm going to keep that.
That's the thing. Like people, because I used to I've worked at more than one place where people like donate or get rid of stuff. They will donate the movie, but they'll take all of the paper collectible things from the inside. They'll take the advertisement. They'll take the booklets. They'll take like trading cards that come with it.
I love getting that stuff.
Yeah.
I actually keep it with my DVD. That's part of why I use Post-it notes. I did not write in my copy because I just want it preserved. My sister's an archivist. I almost want to send it to her so she can scan it and like save it in a database. Because it's also like, I mean, it's so great to have your embarrassments preserved for all eternity. So I really would enjoy it. This would.
Yeah, we definitely want Hangman's Curse to withstand the test of time.
Hang out a little longer. But...
My first off, it arrived. The disc was not in the thing. The disc was just floating around the case, and the case completely cracked in half. It is held together by one of the stickers that from one of the stores it was in, which is the sticker is taping the cover to the box, so it's just the cover is holding the 2 halves of the case together. Like I hope I'm painting a good visual picture here, but I'm holding 2 plastic slabs in my hand.
This episode is going to be unconventional in the fact that it's organized, and it's going to start with us describing the movie semi in its entirety. And I'll do my best to do that. I did not take notes in that respect, but then after the movie ended, I thought that would be really helpful because nobody's seen this movie yet. It's not streaming anywhere. In fact, on the website, when this is posted, typically I say where something's at. I just had to say available on Amazon, and that doesn't even necessarily mean it's near you. So whatever. And after that, we have some reviews we found online that Daniel and I found separate of each other.
I found 2 funny reviews, and you were like, "This is a whole segment."
Well, I found like 4, and I just highlighted the segments I want to read out loud alongside like their dates because like I find that interesting. Then we'll end with a devotional, guys, but more or less a devotional about a devotional, a criticism of a devotional because. This goes places. So, but without further ado, Hangman's Curse is, without further ado, I completely forgot. With the Patreon section, we already introduced Melanie, our guest, but Melanie, this phantom voice.
Sharp-eared listeners may notice that there's
a third voice
here.
Yes.
Hi, Melanie. How are you?
I'm doing really good. How are you?
I'm good. How has your experience on the Cinematic Doctrine podcast been so far? You have 40 minutes to review, essentially. How has it been?
No, it's been really good. I was a little nervous just because I've never done this before, but it's really relaxing, and I'm just enjoying my time so far.
That's actually really great to hear.
Oh, good.
It's like, whew, okay, good. Hey there, it's your friendly neighborhood call to action. Just checking in on you. Hope you're doing all right. I'm just stopping by to say, if you enjoy the show, you can always subscribe and write a review for Cinematic Doctrine. There's iTunes, Podchaser, basically anywhere you listen. You can give us a shout out with a thumbs up, 5 stars, gripping positivity. Or if you hate the show, you can say that too.
Wait, what? What are you saying? Why are you saying
Well, I'm not going to tell them what to do, Ted. They're free to do what they want. Our analytics say we got a lot of listeners in the US, and they love their freedoms. And you're also free to check out our Twitter. Very active there. We host polls, memes. There's also the Cinematic Doctrine Facebook group called Cinematic Doctrine Facebook Group. If you want to join, just answer the questions, read the rules, and tell them the podcast sent you. Also, you should check out our website. Some really cool stuff there. Editorials, written reviews for movies we haven't had time to cover. Always check out cinematicdoctrine.com when you get the chance. Oh, Ted also told me I shouldn't forget to mention the Patreon. Something about you can support us or something? Wait, Ted, I thought this was like a hobby thing. You want me to
expand cinematic doctrine. You know this already.
Right. Yeah, I forgot. I'm the one who put all this together. Yeah, Cinematic Doctrine has a Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you can gain access to early uncut episodes of the podcast. Oh, and did I mention, you get to tell us what to do. That's right, each month you get to vote on a movie we discuss on the show. Anyways, I gotta run, so I'll see you guys later. So I guess, okay, so let's cut into this. Let's get into Hangman's Curse. It is based on a book by Frank Peretti, who has written a ton of very, very, very popular Christian culture books.
Well, they're Christian horror thriller books.
Yes, yeah, and they're apparently like pretty nuts. Like I think I remember hearing that like This Present Darkness has like some insane violence, not in like a bad way. That doesn't bother me.
I quickly looked through his bibliography today, and I've actually read roughly half of all the books he's written.
Can you give some insight into the style, and then we can kind of use that to pivot into this? Or?
Yeah, there's two main Christian horror authors. You'll hear mentioned Frank Peretti and Ted Decker. They actually co-wrote the book House, which was the basis for the other movie that people could have voted on the Patreon. Ted Decker is definitely the more fantasy tinted author. He wrote like the Circle series. Frank Peretti is definitely the more Stephen King-y of the two of them, where he often gets labeled the Christian Stephen King. Two very important things to note about him is, one is that he is a former credentialed minister with the Assemblies of God, the EG, which is a Pentecostal denomination. And that very much shows through most of his theology. This Present Darkness specifically is about spiritual warfare, and it is very much in line with sort of more charismatic Pentecostal beliefs, particularly in its proponents of dominion theology, where the idea that different areas and locations specifically can have like spirits and stuff on them, which is something that I have heard just taught as a thing that some people believe. And I will say that it doesn't necessarily bother me. I'm not someone who adheres to AAG theology, but in the context of horror novels, I don't find it particularly problematic, because the entire genre lends itself to more, I would say, to be nice, like theatrical kind of spirituality.
Yeah, it's like the Black Phone.
I did not see Black Phone yet.
It's just a haunted object, basically. That's basically what amongst also being kind of a light slasher, but that kind of concept is inherently interesting. That's something I really, really like, is haunted objects. Cool.
The other thing is Frank Peretti very strongly believes in the concepts of there is a world of evil and there's a world of good, and these things are kind of at war with each other, and that part of why I think he's caught on with evangelical audiences so much is that dichotomy is very popular in broad evangelical circles, where people tend to see the world in a very black and white view, which again works fine for horror novels. And I will mention right now that I think his book, The Visitation, which also is adapted into a film by the director of House, so I'm actually curious to check that out. The main character is played by the guy who is in Archive 81, who's like the guy who runs the company that the kid works for.
Oh, okay. Yes.
The Visitation is a great novel, and it specifically actually kind of pokes fun at some Pentecostal-y things. But it is about a guy who's like a jaded former Pentecostal pastor who's working in a small town, and a mysterious miracle worker shows up and starts cultivating a following. And it is a book about how chasing signs and wonders can lead you down dark paths. It actually makes some, I think, very great points about some of the dangers of hyper charismaticism. So Frank Peretti is an author that I would say go so far as to say I'm a fan of his writing. He also has written multiple series of children's books and stars in multiple videos aimed at children, as he mentioned in special features here. Mm-hmm. So I was cautiously optimistic about this particular film based on my familiarity with his writing. So
I guess that's a good setup for the beginning of the movie, which borderline has a Blade Runner opening in the sense that it just sort of tells you like the background of our heroes.
Right.
This movie is very similar to Blade Runner. That's something I expected to hear.
Yeah, it's so like nuanced and detailed and moody. It's got a great vibe. The sets are great and neon, and It's just
Harrison
wonderful.
Ford's in it.
Yeah,
It's the doctor character.
Yeah, it's so good. No, the movie literally starts with like there's a secret government program that trains people to investigate paranormal situations called the Veritas Project,
which is very under-mentioned and talked about in this movie. I just want to say that is barely a thing in this movie. It drove me insane.
It was weird that it was the opening tone. So your opening shot is your tone setting, right? Like, man, we haven't even gotten into the movie yet. We're already
we are 2 seconds into the movie.
Right.
We've read 3 lines. And it's just like it's already a problem. But basically it says like there's this project that they do things. They investigate stuff. But then like the next scene is the opening credits, and it's like I wouldn't say uplifting song, but it was like a positive, triumphant sounding song of a character walking through the halls of a schoolway by himself, only to then go to the attic and hang himself, which was really bizarre. And I think I got from both of you, which let me say this right off the gate after I mentioned someone hangs himself. This could be a transgressive episode, especially when we get into the devotional, but that's not my fault. That's the devotional's fault. But like this, we're going to be talking about suicide. It's going to happen, but the jokes we'll have are probably not because suicide is funny. It's not. No. It's because poor depictions of suicide and the lack of tact is funny. So like that, we're laughing at that. And the fact that this movie doesn't open, like its opening kill is somebody killing themselves, but then it's not like scary. It's not like dreadful. It's more just like elevator music for Christian movies. It's really also weird.
You say opening kill. Do other characters actually
nobody else
die
dies
in this movie?
That's why I
think they're just critical.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone actually, at least not that I can remember.
Well, we do not see, do we not to get ahead of ourselves, but do we end up seeing the gym teacher again? Because I think he just
died. The gym teacher did die.
He totally died.
Oh,
he did.
I missed
that.
So.
No, that did happen. You are
right.
He's
just like spiders, and he lays on the floor and then falls over, and then I don't think we see him at the end.
No, I think he's done after that.
But that's basically the opening kill, right? Like, but I have to call that the opening kill because there's no other setup for threat. And that really affects the movie from being scary. But I think both of you told me that the music was a little weird. Did this immediately upset you?
Yeah.
Melanie, was that like a frustration?
Yeah, but I was more just, I don't know if I was really, I'll be honest, I wasn't really paying attention too closely to the music in the beginning.
Yeah.
I was more just like thinking about like the color just seemed a little weird.
Yeah.
Just really, I'm not good with describing, I guess, colors in film, but it just, I couldn't tell like if I was supposed to be looking at a flashback or not at first. Just because it just seems like to be the same color throughout the film. So there was like no distinction between that. And it's like, okay, well, I kind of put the pieces together after I saw the rope. I was like, oh, okay. This is the person that's supposedly like going to be haunting these children later on in the movie. But yeah, it just didn't really like segue very well from like that first explanation of the Veritas Project and then this happening. It was just really odd.
Just bizarre.
Well, just to revisit the Veritas Project. First off, if you watch the special features on the DVD, it's very clear that this was supposed to be the first of a series because the poster for the movie above the title of the movie says like the Veritas Project. So I think they're hoping to adapt.
What does your cover look like? Because my cover doesn't say anything about Veritas Project.
So I'm saying like in the special features of the DVD, you see a poster for it, and which they talk about the series. He only wrote 2 books in this series. So I don't know if that's why they never adapted further stories. But what's weird is it's such a high concept setup for a very simple execution where you could have accomplished this exact same premise by just saying like, we have undercover cops in the school.
Yeah.
Like, there is no reason
for them to be paranormal investigators.
Yeah. It's extremely like over, like it's one of the weird things about the movie. And there's a particular scene later that actually made me realize like, oh, they made one particular like huge mistake here. But yeah, for me, the music
they made one particular huge mistake.
You'll know what I mean when we get to it. But yeah, the music was like mixed too loud. Like there were multiple scenes of dialogue, and I was like messing with my TV settings. Okay, so it wasn't just my TV then. If you're saying it also had it, but
I noticed it was a little loud too. It was like an MTV show where they kind of like keep the lyrics in for the song that they got because the lyrics tell you about the scene. Very Vampire Diaries.
like in most CW shows. I was wrong. But
so good.
Yeah, so like it's particularly distracting because like the big rock song, the first thing I noticed, it's like an audio adrenaline song. It's like a Christian rock band. So not only is the music too loud, but it's like kind of an ill-fitting song because it's not like a cool song. Like I got a lot of nostalgia for audio adrenaline. They got some good tracks, but like it just doesn't fit teen horror film, which is the vibe they're going for. So like it was distracting, and I'm already having trouble focusing because it's boring, and so now I can't hear what anyone's saying. So it's just really losing me.
But that effectively sets up that the tone is going to be a little confusing, and that it's not quite going to be as interesting as you think it'll be as a teen horror Christian movie. Anyways, movie now cuts to a football scene. Some kids are playing football. One of them seems to be a little out of it. I guess it's the quarterback. I don't watch football, so guys, sorry. I don't know what anybody's doing. All I know is that the entirety of the stands are full. And as we pan across
Melvin.
I don't watch football. I think it's the quarterback because he's the one making the calls, right?
Oh, you saying quarterback or cornerback?
What do you think I'm saying?
I thought you said quarterback, and I was like, and in my head, I'm like, even if you don't watch football, you should. Never mind. So continue, Melvin. I'm sorry.
Wait, is it quarter or corner?
There's two separate positions.
I'm saying quarterback.
This is going nowhere. Please continue. I think I'm just being serious.
I watched a bit of baseball when I was a kid. That was about it. It was the year that the Phillies won. And then I watched the next year and the Phillies were losing. I said, okay, never mind. I'm not doing this anymore.
Wow, fair weather fan over here.
Yeah.
But anyway, somebody's playing.
So they're playing football.
Football is happening.
Football is taking place.
They kicked the ball. Something about pigskin. I don't know. I just watched the movie. But the first laugh though that this movie got out of me, and it was like a guffaw.
I know it's gonna be. I know what it's gonna be.
It pans across the stands. And then there's just a section of emos.
Yes. I lost it.
I loved that so much. I thought it was so great. And she's got like this big black sun hat on.
Yeah. She's got a look.
And my first thought is,
like, I hate sunlight.
Why are they out there? It's going to be really hot.
Why did they even go?
Yeah.
Well, no, they went because I guess they wanted to see if like their protector was going to do something.
Yeah. As we're talking about it, it's clicking. I'm like, okay, maybe. Yeah. But still, like, you don't know that.
Right.
So the first thing you think is, I was in high school and I didn't even go to the football games and I'm not even emo. So like, why are they here?
Yeah.
It was so funny.
Yeah. Because he just starts freaking out. You just think he's afraid of goth kids. Because he's just...
You may not know this, but the easiest way you can show your support for Cinematic Doctrine is to rate and review the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen. So press pause and share your thoughts. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And then press play again so you can hear the rest of the show. And then the first, I think, crime of the film that then continues throughout the film is that they do this crazy contrast glow whenever the paranormal stuff is happening. And you can't really see what's happening other than I suspect it's scary. But I will confess, this is technically the first horror movie I ever watched. My sister got it when I was a kid and watched it, and I watched it with her, and it was the first jump scare to ever get me scared. So that's Hangman's Curse got it, I guess. And for some reason as a kid, I think these visuals did freak me out, but in my mind, I remember them not having the weird contrast. So
wait, you watched this as a kid?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But I didn't watch it because my parents put it on. I just watched it because my sister got it. I don't actually know the story of how my sister got it. Again, me messing up all this research, and I failed doing my primary source investigation.
That's it. I did not realize that. So wait, did you have fond memories of this movie or something? Or
I just remember it being kind of scary. I didn't know what fan fiction was, but when I would write in my notebooks of a story about a kid in school investigating something, I guess I was writing a fan fiction of Hangman's Curse. This is the deep lore. This is what you come here for the Cinematic Doctrine podcast. Paranorman last year, I told you I talked to ghosts because I was lonely. This year, I tell you Hangman's Curse was my first fan fiction.
Oh my gosh.
But yes, Hangman's Curse freaked me out as a kid, but I was also like, I don't know, 2003. I was 7 years old. So like, I guess that makes sense being scary because I've never watched something scary before. And the mention that there could be ghosts makes me go, that's creepy.
Yeah.
I don't know what a ghost is. So, okay.
Ghost, where?
Yeah. And it's like not. It's just spiders. Like, oh,
Right.
spoilers. But
Spoiler.
But yeah,
Spoilers
it's
for
just-
Hangman's Curse, just for people to know.
yeah, but like, all that to say is, as an adult, the effect is very frustrating. And in one of the special features, you actually see the kid who plays the ghost and they put makeup on him and it looked kind of cool. And I was like, hey, that would have been neat. But you would not even know that this kid's wearing makeup because they just do like the Grave Encounters ghost more face thing with high contrast and a bloom effect. So you can't see it. But anyways, this kid's
Right.
freaking out and he falls over and he starts going, Abel Fry, Abel Fry. And so begins the movie. The goth kids get up. That's their cue to leave. Then we cut to a drug bust. Daniel, do you remember this scene at all?
I was so confused by the scene.
Tell me what the scene was.
First, I wasn't clear if these are like the same characters that I just saw.
Yes.
Like it's like
Right.
some of the same goth kids or
Yeah.
emo kids. They seem more gothy than emo to me, but
We just got introduced to some emo kids, and now we're introduced to some more emo kids. That one of them is dancing, but it's music from the movie.
Yes.
So is it in his head?
So when they walked through that door, I paused the movie and had to walk away for a second. Like I just couldn't handle it. There are three moments where I had to pause the movie. The first was them in the football stands. Second was when them walking into like an empty warehouse, which is this the school? Like I wasn't sure where this was located because I was like,
Right.
why does the school have just a giant abandoned building attached to it? I guess,
Yes.
Yeah, I thought they had infiltrated the school already.
Yeah, I thought
I was
the
like,
same
is this
thing.
them undercover? Oh no, it's something else. And when it pans over to like the mom in the scene, like, well, you don't know
Who is-
she's the mom.
But she's visibly
she
way
just-
older than that.
Yes, I'm like, she looks so old. I have no idea who
Is this a
who
student?
this is supposed to be. I was like, if you're undercover, this is a really bad undercover look.
Sorry, Mel Harris. Sorry.
It's the
Right.
worst 21 Jump Street attempt I've
Yeah.
ever seen. And I was like, well, maybe they're trying to say like a teacher at the school is selling drugs. And
Right.
you get the writers of this movie, they spent weeks undercover with cops just to know the drug lingo because they're saying things like, I hope you got a lot of drugs or whatever. Like they're saying like the
Yeah,
worst
yeah.
drug dialogue you've ever heard. It's
Yeah.
very after school specially. Like most of this movie
Yes.
felt like an after school special.
That's what a lot
Yeah.
of people on IMDb said. Yeah, very
Which
after
is-
school
Yeah.
special.
not
That's a good
Not a good
that's a
word.
good description.
a 2003 like supposedly like real movie. So there's
Yes.
the goth kids are there kind of, and then there's a guy buying what he thinks are drugs, and then a guy with an upside down cross on his forehead walks in the room with the two goth emo kids, and then like it turns out this is a big drug bust, and it's an extremely confusing scene, partially because none of this is important because this is a setup to introduce this family. And I am sort of like they do the bust and they all take off their costumes because it turns out that's not a student or a teacher. That is the mom of this family. I think the guy with the upside down cross is the dad of the family.
Yes, it is.
The year this movie came out, that actor also appeared in the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie playing Battling
Yes.
Jack Murdoch.
Yes.
So what a year for this guy's career. He was in a great movie and also the Ben Affleck Daredevil. And I immediately recognized the daughter and I looked up, she's on Gossip Girl.
Leighton Meester. Yeah.
She's one of the main characters of
Oh.
Gossip Girl. Actually, almost every actor in this movie, except the character who turns out to be the main villain, has an actual career outside of this.
well, good for them.
Both the parents
and the
are
goth girl.
Golden Globe.
The goth girl also doesn't have anything. And
Oh,
she's
she
the best
doesn't?
performer in the movie. The goth girl,
Yeah,
frankly, is really,
gives
really
a
good.
performance.
Yeah, Douglas Smith, Bye Bye Man of Fame.
Man.
Which is a blast of a
he
movie.
needs a more discerning agent when it comes specifically to horror.
Yes.
And
yes.
then this is one of the only times we really get introduced to the concept of the Veritas Project because it turns out they're working with the school to investigate what's happening. And I wasn't clear if they were there to investigate the ghost thing or if they were there because of drugs. Like, did
kids
the
are getting
schools-
sick.
Okay,
But
kids
the
are getting
film
sick.
in the beginning Well, okay, so the film in the beginning says that they're a paranormal team, like they investigate paranormal stuff. But then our
Right.
introduction to the Veritas Project is a drug bust,
Yeah, so
which has nothing to
Right.
do with paranormal stuff.
Paranormal activity, yeah.
Right. And then, which, I mean, I don't know. I guess that's interesting if you think that drugs are paranormal. That's that's an interesting worldview.
maybe they do like a lot of side hustles, right? They do
So,
paranormal
like,
stuff. They also
So I
do
do the
drug
paranormal
busts.
stuff pro bono, but I do the stuff for drugs for money.
My favorite business card I ever got handed was I was talking to a guy at a store and I mentioned that my friends were looking for a photographer for their wedding. And he hands me his business card and his business card says photographer / paranormal investigator.
What?
So
Nice.
you can't let society box you in, you know.
So you take your
Right.
wedding photos, but there's a ghost that just like photobombs.
like every time.
That's
my
awesome.
gosh.
So maybe it's that kind of thing.
Enjoying this episode? Grab that share link and tell your friends. Word of mouth is the most effective way for a podcast to reach new listeners, so don't be shy. Share the episode wherever you can. But then they end up going to the school, and only like in 1 or 2 dialogue scenes, like I think it's when the kid falls to the ground and says, Able Frey, the other football players, the pigskin kickers, the ball kickers, me not knowing what football is.
The footballers.
These guys,
Football players is safe.
sports ball, the sports ball players, they are like, they mentioned briefly like he's sick or something. That's our 12th guy getting sick. I don't know how they have a team anymore. They should probably quit their league.
Yeah, they're down to like their 4th string players at this point, right?
Right.
The starting line is gone.
And then jump ahead, we have the Veritas Project crew, which we didn't mention it, but David Keith is the dad. So now we've got our family covered in actors. But they end up going to this school. The principal starts talking to them about what's been going on. Says like 5 or 6 students have gotten sick and left, and they're not sure why. I don't know why then they have this like team of... I don't know. I'm not going to try to understand it. We need to get through the movie. They get settled in, and the 2
Right.
teens who were goths are now just normal kids. Light and Meester is going to play the, prep girl, and Douglas Smith's character is going to be the jock or the nerd. Which, by the way, did you guys hear that their names are Elijah and Elisha?
Yes, I
That's
did. I noticed that.
What? Oh, strange. You didn't know that?
Elijah and Elisha. And I
Yeah.
thought
Those are
that
the
was-
nerd characters?
No. That's the kids' names.
The kids, their real names.
What?
They're twins.
Which one's which?
Elisha is Light and Meester's character, and Elijah is Douglas Smith's character. But in a podcast format, that's going to be very confusing, just as it is in scripture to remember which one is which. So, sorry, guys.
Why did he go undercover as a nerd? I don't get this. He doesn't. They just give him glasses. Like he doesn't look like the nerds.
Yeah.
He's visibly like bigger than. He's like a foot taller than them.
He's a foot taller, he's bigger, and he has good-looking eyes. So I don't know why he's a nerd. Like, he wouldn't fit in.
It also like would be less prominent if he just was a normal student and not in a clique, right? Like why
Right.
isn't he just?
Right.
That's how you know it's written by an adult, because adults are like, cliques exist. I gotta
Oh
put
my! The
people
first
into groups.
The other time I had to pause the movie was the first time we see the nerd characters because they're walking down the hallway. They look like nerds from the 80s and they're doing math problems on their on their
Yes, yes.
hands.
It's like a posse.
They're like, what
They're
do
gangs.
nerds do? They just do math all the time. They can't stop doing math. Like even when they're not in class.
Stop,
Like
I'll die. And Abel Fry will get me. I'm gonna
Oh my
die. No. It'll be like what is it? The house on Haunted Hill with when the rope comes up around the woman's shoulder and goes around her neck. Do you know that it's like an old like 30s movie? Shirley on knows. She's hearing this episode and she knows.
I've
exactly
only
what I'm talking
seen the
about.
1999 remake of House on Hill with Jeffrey Rush.
This is the Vincent Price one. If they stop doing math problems, the rope will just come up around. And
Oh,
get
no.
caught. They got to be really careful.
That's a good headcanon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Headcanon. That's what it is. So they all end up going into their groups. They're introduced to a new character. Unfortunately, I need to scroll to it, and they do not have a headshot, so I can't find it on IMDb. I think it's Daniel Farber's character, Norman Bloom, I think is his name.
Yes, he's the other person
think
who doesn't
so.
really have a career after this.
He's the only character in the movie to have lines that sound like a normal person. I don't know if you noticed that, but they actually sounded normal to the point that like his 3rd time showing up on screen, me and Catherine go, "Oh, finally he's back. I can relax and stop trying to understand the cryptic dialogue."
That is the weird thing about the movie's performances, where I looked at the cast and I saw that all these people that do other things, and I was like, "Oh wow, like there's actors in this." And then the main performances are from the people where this is like the only thing they ever did. Like everyone else seems like they're on autopilot. Like they kind of realize what kind of movie they're in.
But they get introduced to this kid, and the kid's going to tell them where to go and like introduce them to places, kind of their first friend. Then Douglas Smith, who is one of the lead 4 characters, doesn't have a line for 16 minutes. And he's in a couple scenes, but he just doesn't say anything, which I thought was extremely bizarre. They get introduced to some bullies, and the bullies have some very comical stuff, including "Give me your lunch money," which got a laugh out of me.
Oh my gosh! do schools still do lunch money?
I don't know. I think it's probably like Apple Pay
No.
or something. I know when I worked at a school in a lunchroom, they used cards. They could swipe a card and just took money off, or they typed in a number. They got a school number. So the kids are getting bullied, whatever. Now two of the goths run out of the room, to which my wife goes, I think they only had 1 tube of black lipstick because they all have the exact same makeup. Which, whatever, just interesting set stuff we noticed with the film. They start talking, and pretty quickly they just reveal their hand. The male jock, I'm sorry, the male goth is saying like, what are you freaking out about? And the girl just goes, I can't take it anymore. What are we waiting for? I can't do this anymore. And then the male jock says, you need to trust in Abel Fry. He will get them. He will make them sick. We have the power. We're flipping the script. And my wife goes, oh, it's just a bad script. Ba-bum. Psh. She should have been on this episode too. She's got some great singers for this diva too. She's great. Anyways, moving on. They move out. We then hard cut to a scene that's just mid-conversation of Light and Meester going, but why not prayer in school? And
that
I don't know.
Frustrated me so much because it just came out of nowhere. It just seemed like
it's not relevant to the rest of
we
the
have
movie.
to do a Christian plug of some kind.
Yes.
Let's have this unimportant argument, not anything to do with the story argument about whether prayer is okay in school or not. And then, of course, they needed some kind of like social interaction for her and this other character to have like googly eyes at each other.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I also thought was pretty funny.
I was hoping the teacher would be like, I only pray to Abel Fry or whatever. like, so it would like tie
something
that
fun.
It was tied to the plot somehow. This conversation never comes back in any way.
It could have been fun.
No, it's completely random.
It fails on the script writing 101 level of you need to explain your plot and your characters are set in a high school. Just have the literature teacher talk about a book that's kind of related to your story. So they do it in Halloween. They do it in Nightmare on Elm Street. They do it in all the horror movies. They don't do it here. So it doesn't have even the 101 stuff. Even like a good horror movie, a bad horror movie, if it has interesting kills, kind of fun paranormal stuff, then it's fun. But we don't have anything like that.
Ooh, they should have had the biology teacher talking about like venom or something.
Yeah, why not?
Right.
Oh, but I bet I could pray the venom out. No, you can't. It's God.
Because God's not God, no real. You know.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Stupid. But like that kind of thing just isn't happening. But then they do the really frustrating thing where it's sort of like you could hear somebody in a youth group cheering because then the bell rings and the teacher can't say his frankly reasonable response. But then like a kid in the classroom, obviously we want to take the advice of a teenage boy who says, yeah, but if you think the law exists, then you have a comprehension of judicial law. So therefore and it's just like, shut up, move on. This isn't about the movie. We need to get out of here. Nothing scary has happened in 30 minutes. I need something scary to happen. It's a horror movie.
Right.
And so we keep on going. I think at this point we've visited the trailer, which is where they live, which is kind of the only other excuse for like, oh, because they're like the Veritas Project, they move around. But I would have assumed they'd have enough money to like, we'll buy you a house to like stay in or rent you a house, whatever. They're in a trailer.
Because they're also doing all their lab experiments in the trailer.
Yeah, it's really bizarre.
Which I also thought was like really bizarre. I'm like, isn't like all your stuff gonna be like contaminated because
drive one time and like everything has been destroyed.
Everything is just and
then one character takes out a Tamagotchi and says all the stuff that's scary happens at night. We need to put this thing in the wall, which actually means I missed a scene. Leighton Meester's character is now being introduced to the girls. The girls say, they do the exposition dump with some riveting acting from one of the friends where the character just explains that Abel Fry used to go to the school He was
It's my
bullied.
favorite scene, I think, out of the whole movie.
It definitely has basically a punchline, which I'll make clear in a second. But like, she explains that Abel Fry used to go to school, was bullied, may or may not have killed somebody else, which that doesn't get brought up anymore. That's like,
Right.
I think one other scene somebody brings it up, but it's essentially the equivalent of the "I have breast cancer" from The Room. It's very bizarre.
Well, it's not just bizarre because it doesn't come up, but it's like an important bit of the lore. Like usually in a movie like this, one of the things that I always love is hearing the legend, like hearing the urban
the legend is fun,
right?
And that doesn't really happen in this movie, and
No.
it's partially why I had trouble even following like what I'm even supposed to be invested in, because the things they consistently choose to focus on are so odd. Like it just, I don't know. It's like, I don't think they realized they were making like a ghost story horror film. Or I did not read these because these were children's books from Frank Peretti, so I never read them. So I don't know if the issue is with the source material or with the decisions made by the people making the film. But like they seem to not want to make a scary movie.
Right.
Hey there, listener. Want to influence the podcast? Head on over to patreon.com/cinematic doctrine and support the show for $3 a month. In doing so, you'll be able to vote on a movie poll that picks a film we discuss each month. So jump on over there and have your voice heard. Despite this, they're totally fine with depictions of hanging and suicide, because then the character goes, "See, I drew a picture," and it's just a picture of Abel Fry hanging, and it's just okay.
It was my favorite part.
It's so funny.
It's like, just like, why do you have that with you?
It's really
just to
bizarre.
show people.
That's a practice story because you got the visual aid, so they're ready to tell it to drop that.
Yeah. If in case you didn't know what suicide looked like, let me show you what suicide looks like.
Oh,
Several years before 13 Reasons Why. Several years. Hangman's Curse is killing it.
If
here.
you want to know know the source, know the inspiration.
Then she mentions that they died in the abandoned wing, the forbidden wing. It's like Harry Potter or something.
Yeah.
And the girls just, Light and Mystery's like, let's go to the forbidden wing. What?
I don't get
Why?
this school at all.
And I know.
Why?
It's very bizarre. Anyways, they go to the forbidden wing. She breaks in. She goes in far. They're like, where are you going? How will we know if you're injured? And she's just like, you'll know. And it's like, what? But if you just get grabbed and gagged, no, they won't. Like, anyways, it's not that kind of movie. She gets jump scared by a mask that's just there, but then like later on, it's not actually a person. It really was just like a scarecrow. I don't know. They go to the trailer.
There are very few like scares of any kind in this movie, and the handful that you do have are so bad.
Yes, they're very bad. They end up going to the trailer. The kids say, "We want to go to the school because we've heard," and this is the first time as an audience we hear this, but they say the rumor is that when the kids are doing their performances at night, I just remembered what they're performing and how tasteless it is. Anyways, we'll get there. It made me and my wife freak out. We were just like, this is ridiculous. But when the kids are performing, they end up hearing something at night. It's almost like maybe the echo of their performance. Regardless, the kids want to go in spy suits when they could just go in normal clothing because a performance is being practiced. So it'd be fine. You would just be like, oh, it's an extracurricular thing. So they go in spy suits in cahoots, and they end up putting the little Tamagotchi recorder device in the wall, whatever. They end up leaving. I'm a little foggy on what happens next. I think they end up finding one of the goth kids just outside. The goth kid disappears and zooms off into space and freaks them out, but whatever.
Melanie, what happens here?
Yeah, do you know what happens? I can't remember.
Okay. Yeah, what you remember is what I remember. Like, they're investigating, they're arguing about something, and then there's like this goth kid like on top of something. It's like
Spider-Man.
What are you guys doing? Or like, what are you guys doing here? It's just like really weird. And then he's just gone, and that's it.
Does he come back in the movie?
Yes, it's the lead goth kid.
It's the lead goth kid.
Okay.
Yeah, that was randomly there.
Played by Jake Richardson. I just found out by scrolling on IMDb.
One review on Rotten Tomatoes just said, "OMG, Jake Richardson's so hot." So I wonder if that was him.
Just himself.
It was only 4 stars too, so they admitted the film was not perfect.
Well, what's funny is he's not entirely a lead character, but if you go on the back of the box,
he's the one in the center with the biggest profile.
Yeah,
I don't know why. And he's actually on the back of the box
was
twice.
he like big into 2003 or something?
He's got a lead profile photo in the beginning, in the middle of the cover, and then on one of the snapshots, he's like down on the bottom. But then they have a snapshot of Douglas Smith in emo clothes, and he's got the eyes for it, but it's only from the scene when they do the drug bust. So I don't know what that's about.
Right.
And Light Meester was like pulling him around like a leash. That scene is very upsetting. I don't understand. I think at this point now we end up going to the parents and what the parents are doing, which the mom really doesn't do anything. Like, I don't know what she was hired to do at the school. I think she's just kind of there because David Keith's character is a janitor.
She was supposed to be a guidance counselor, but you don't actually see her doing any counseling.
I need the extended director's cut right now.
It's like she does all like, she says she's going undercover as like a guidance counselor, I think. And then you never see her do it. You just see her in the trailer doing her lab testing experiments.
Interestingly, with the devotion, that could have been interesting, having scenes with counseling, just to understand how they perceive counseling to function.
In the fiction of the world, that'd be the most useful undercover gig, right? Because you can directly talk to students, you can get intel, you can like make the people that you're suspicious of have to talk to you under the guise that you're their guidance counselor. This Veritas project seems kind of like a slapdash operation, if you ask me. They don't seem to be doing their job very well. Multiple kids like almost die while they're there.
We move on, and the dad is just sort of investigating some lockers of the kids who have gotten sick. He ends up finding a straw that is plugged at both ends, and they have a dog, by the way, who has a name. It was in the credits. I didn't catch it. I forgot. Catherine noticed it, but it's a cute dog name, as all dogs are. Dogs are innocent. Although in terms of dogs in movies that are good actors, this one's not so great. It just does a paw trick. Whatever. The best one is still probably in The Thing.
Very strange tangent.
There was another movie that I just watched that had a good dog in it. I can't remember what it was. Most dogs are good. Bruiser's another good one from Legally Blonde. I think that's a pretty good one. So now the dad has been investigating these lockers. The dog barked at like a $50 bill. I don't know why this kid had a $50 bill in his locker.
Why is it not 100? 50 is such an odd.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. I think they end up going back to the, which by the way, we're about like 40 minutes into the movies. Not a lot has happened in our description, but like not a lot happened.
This movie's pace is a nightmare. Like now's a good time I need to mention it. So little happens for so long.
It is dying for people to be dying. Like, I know that's like sad.
It's dying for anything to happen.
But like fiction needs that, right? Like, especially horror fiction. There's no creative kills. They're like, we literally have a scene. Well, let's just skip ahead. All right. I think it's like in the middle of the movie, a character is getting sick. One of the bullies is getting sick, but in a workshop. And like, that's prime for like, he trips and falls, or like they do this in Ned's Declassified, where the teacher in Chop Shop keeps injuring his finger, or like his hand gets cut off, but he just has it again in the next episode. Like they don't do anything.
I will contend, like, I get that this is supposed to be for family, allegedly youth group audiences, based on the fact that there's like a study guide thing that goes with it, and you don't have to do like a movie where people constantly get killed in like Final Destination-y kind of ways.
Right.
However, Haunted School is a very easy like setting to do consistent like spooks and scares and that sort of thing.
Part of what makes prom night so fun is that it's just an empty school where you can hear the disco of the dance going on. And even though you're close enough to hear that there's people that can save you, the maze that is school is so convoluted and frightening and big that if a killer's coming after you, it's terrifying. And like you can kind of do that with a ghost story in Hangman's Curse because it's so populated, but you're like the only person who can see this ghost. So that like is freaky.
Well, given that it's like a weird, I don't know if this is supposed to be a private school or not, but like you could do a lot with that. But also like I shudder to think of what I'm inviting by talking about this, but like if you want to go with a more after school angle, because later the girl from Gossip Girl, she starts having kind of like a romance with one of the football players. You could do more of like teens and the high school hierarchies, the really scary. You could do more drama-y kind of thing, but they don't do anything. Like nothing happens. There's no drama. There's
Yeah.
no issues. There's no, will we be found out as undercover? Are the teens getting too caught up in the high school lifestyle to focus on the mission?
You're actually making me make a note on one of the devotional things that I'll bring up.
Oh, okay. Was there another version of this story where like there's more things, like interesting things happen? While like the specter in the background is pulling strings and forcing them to confront difficult situations. I don't know where this happens in the movie, but like there is the conversation where they talk to her about the fact that she's getting too caught up in dating the guy. Are we?
This is
yet?
This is about this point. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say they kind of do like touch on it a little bit, but I don't think it's ever really resolved in any way.
No,
so it's not really part of the story. It's kind of just like a passing thing that's just there, and then it's gone, and then it doesn't matter anymore.
This is the thing that drove me completely insane. Because I'm half paying attention to this movie, I'm sitting there, and I just get woken from my medication-induced stupor. Because I'm like, wait a minute, this should have been a TV show, right? Like,
yeah, it could have been a TV show.
This is a traveling family of Christian paranormal investigators who have to consistently go undercover in different situations and lead double lives.
And they can pull the Scooby-Doo where it ends up just being a greedy capitalist every time or something.
It's an angry bully with a bunch of spiders, spoilers.
Yeah, there you go.
Or whatever, you know, and the kids talk about like, we don't have friends, we don't have a life. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is interesting. This is an interesting bit of drama. This is a difficult family dynamic. The parents, like, do the kids want to do this? Did the parents force their kids into it?
Right. And I like that the kids seem to have a dynamic that they agree on. Like, I like that this is a story where the kids actually like each other and want to work together. Like, they have a conversation that I skipped over because it's not relevant at all. But they're basically just talking about how their life at school is, and like they kind of want to work together to do things, and like that's interesting. But then like essentially that drama is dissipated by the film just sort of being like, well, we'll get into it. I guess we've already spoiled the spiders, so I won't spoil the devotional.
Hey. We have some Patreon goals we're trying to reach. If we get enough support, we'll review each God's Not Dead movie, as well as The Inhumans, that really bad Marvel show from a couple years ago. Head over to patreon.com/cinematic doctrine and share your support.
This would be like I feel like the Conjuring films actually hit a good balance where you get a lot of the Warrens family drama, but you also get the ghost stories.
Yeah.
I get that they don't have a ton of material to work with as far as like he only wrote 2 books, but the interesting aspect of this movie is not a bunch of kids I don't care about keep getting sick. It's, wait, what's Project Veritas? Why is his family involved? What is this stuff? How does his family work? Why do their teenage kids look like they're old people? But like, how do they feel about this? Like, why?
Yeah.
Obviously, like the brother and sister are best friends because they're their only friends. Do they have friends outside of this? It's hinted at the end. The ending makes no sense with that context because it's like, well, what happens now? But like, they drop this like nugget of a very interesting like issue, this tension there, and then it's never talked about ever again. And it's so strange, and it blew my mind, and then it just moves on, and I went back to being kind of half awake. So what happens next?
What does happen next? That's a good question.
I was about to try and give it like a weird like mixture of your names and realized I'd just be Melvin or Melanie. So
anyway, Mel, what happens next?
Mel.
So the jock ends up getting sick, the bully jock. The one that Leighton Meester is dating or wants to date or is interested in is starting to become less of a bully and kind of nicer, although he is a little passive. At one point, Leighton Meester ends up running back into Norman, and Norman is trying to get Leighton Meester's trying to get some coke, but it can't work. Norman ends up helping her out by giving her $1. She doesn't get coke. She ends up seeing Crystal, that's her name. The goth girl is crying, so you can just assume she probably was getting bullied again. And Leighton Meester very aggressively is like, "Oh, are you okay? Take my coat. Take it." And she actually pushes her into the locker.
Yeah.
I don't
Just,
know.
like so forceful.
This is where, being a director, it's important to look at your dailies and go, that's not good. Like, she just bullied her into taking a sweater. So Crystal ends up using the sweater, reaches into the pocket to take $1 out, which I guess she gave her the sweater. She literally says you can keep it. So I guess that includes whatever's in the pockets, I guess. So she uses the $1 bill to get a Coke, whatever. Plot moves on. And in that sense, like that, let me say this. I like that scene because it sets up something that you didn't know it was setting up. What you think the scene is just the resolution of her emotions kind of stabilizing and actually being comforted by the fact that someone was nice to her with the jacket and the added bonus of $1. So in that way, like, even bad movies have good scenes. Cool. Let's move on to more bad stuff. This is when we introduce what the play is that they are performing. Melanie, do you remember what the play is?
It was like, I don't remember the name of the play either. I just remember seeing a bunch of people
either.
like dressed in like black clothing, like running around and on the stage.
It's like something titled The Curse of the Hanging Man.
I was like, is this like...
Yeah, Dan.
Oh, geez, I didn't realize. Oh my gosh.
At first, I thought they were like telling the folklore of like what happened at their school, and I'm like, this is grossly inappropriate. And, I was like,
it's only 10 years later. Like, this happened 10 years ago.
That was the other thing I noticed. It didn't seem like a lot of time had passed, and I didn't know, because I'm not like a huge horror film like type of person, so I'm not sure how long folklore, like the distance between like when it's like this happened this long ago and like how common it might be.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, it'd be like if someone died.
Columbine had like a play 10 years later.
Yeah, I wasn't going to vote Columbine, but yeah, it'd be like if 10 years after that they had a play about, I don't know, a school shooting. Like, I'm trying to think
The Bullets That Make Us. That's the title.
Right.
Something really bad.
It's just like it was, no matter what the context.
It'd be like if they did Bowling for Columbine at Columbine. Like if they just did a play version of that for some reason.
Yeah.
They didn't even put the Slender Man movie in theaters around like Wisconsin, where like the two girls ended up killing, or I think, did they kill her?
Right.
The girl survived, actually. The girl survived.
She survived. Okay. When they attacked her,
Yeah.
they said it was because of Slenderman. They didn't even screen the movie there. It was like almost impossible for you to see the film in that state. So like, what the heck, Frank Peretti?
And
I know.
Again, I haven't read the books. I don't know if it's in there, but like, it'd be one thing too if like it was used in a utilitarian way, though, like the play informed the audience about something. Like if we learned something about the curse, or if we got some very important information out of it, but like it didn't even click for me. That's what the play was even about. I thought it was odd they're all dressed in black. Like I thought that was a weird thing for this particular school.
You weren't confused why a noose was on stage?
Well, like I thought there was a play that utilized a noose, and it just happened to be, because I'm trying to remember, there was some other movie I watched that like there was a play with a noose that someone hung themselves on, but they still went through with the play later or something. Like, so I just thought they were doing a play that happened to have a noose in it, and that they happened to have a similar-ish play 10 years ago, and that's where the student got the noose. I didn't realize like it was something that was so close to this.
Well, and again, this is the problem with the mythology of the movie, because like you could, by making it more than 10 years ago, which this affects like the reveal at the end, but by making it more than 10 years ago, you can have your abandoned wing be like the old school, and like the school we're in is like the extensions. And so the old school, you know, it's being debilitated, nobody goes there. It's also more interesting to explore like a creepy old school, like,
right, you find the old props and like the dusty old, you know.
It was already creepy enough that like the school looks old. Like schools now in movies and shows are much more modern. Even the school I worked at is old, but was pretty modern. But like this one has like, it's like tile for walls. So it's like, it's really like, this is old. They had grout between the tiles on the walls. So it's like, it's just weird. But in this scene, where they are performing a rehearsal, for some reason the whole school is in
The theater group also gets a pep rally.
Just watching, like nobody has to go to class.
Yeah, I don't know what that was about. Yeah, all for this school.
It's a cool school where they all skip class to go watch plays.
Right.
All of the emos go to the football games.
Instead of just leaving.
And all of the football players go to the plays. Yeah.
Well, it's a very supportive school. You don't get that from the one bully who's bullying everyone, apparently. But
Takes everyone's lunch money.
Everyone else is very supportive of each other's hobbies, you know?
Yeah.
Let's keep moving on, because in this scene, a pivotal moment happens in which the goth kids are sitting in one area. I think it's Douglas Smith, the nerd, ends up sitting next to the goth kids, and then the goth kids comically all stand up and move over and just sit somewhere
not
else.
even cool enough for the outcast kids.
Right.
Even though my wife goes, "Wait a minute," and points. That one kid was a nerd. Now he's a goth.
Oh,
And
really?
Oh
think
yeah,
one of the
I noticed
extras-
that.
Yeah.
Yes,
Ah.
he'd like gone to the other side. I guess he wanted protection or something.
I want to know that plot
He wanted
line.
Abel Fry to protect him too.
There's your movie.
Yeah, what's
There
his
you go.
story?
He was a nerd who read like The Crow and played like weird fantasy games. It turns out they have a lot
Somebody
of
actually died in that
overlapping
movie.
like
Yeah.
interests. Like talk about Frank Frazetta paintings and listening to The Cure, which he found on the Crow soundtrack.
Oh, it's so great. Which, by the way, there's that other painting they end up seeing earlier where they're walking throughout the school and it's in the middle of the night and they have a flashlight and they do a fake jump scare where a demon's on the wall, but it's actually just this painting. And Light and Meester characters goes like, "This is what I think Crystal feels like all the time." And it's like it's a school hung painting of demons eating a person. And it's not graphic, but I don't think a school would hang that up.
Yeah, what department is
No.
that?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that wouldn't actually happen in a school. It's just a lot of it is pretty ridiculous. And I
It's
was going to make
wild.
that one comment about the play is just like, I don't even know if that would be approved at a school.
Yeah.
Yes.
For a lot of reasons, like too many to count. But it's just, yeah, a lot of it is definitely not what an actual school would be like.
I mean, even Sidney Prescott was freaking out on stage in college on Scream 2. So I don't know how we're going to have this happen in a high school.
Also, like, it's a school that's allowing the weird thing is the paranormal investigators are invited by the school with I guess the full knowledge of multiple people working there, because there's that one like cop security guard that like knows
Yes.
what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's like the school,
yeah.
while also refusing to shut the school down, despite like and I get like, oh, like half the parents, she says like half the parents want their kids to graduate, which like you could go on like a 2-week vacation, right? Like you could just let the investigators come in, like, you know, bless the premises or whatever. Like it's just a very oddly run school, which I know it's oddly run so the plot can happen. But there's so many odd decisions as far as like the administrator. I know I'm getting old because I'm thinking about these things. I'm just like, would they have to like alert parents if this is happening? Would they send home like notices like, just so you kids know there's going to be
going
some
through their lockers.
21
That's
Jump
probably,
Street
like,
things?
I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
I just wish the movie also had more flair. Like if it was like Conjuring, where like they take out crucifixes and scan lockers,
And not just like
silly stuff like that.
Not like the very quickly done doodles of vaguely scary things in some of the kids' lockers.
They don't do Hollywood Christianity, which is more entertaining to watch than like whatever this form is. But in this scene during the play, our character Crystal, she ends up starting to have like a panic attack, and then oh no, it turns out she's getting the visions and the bloom effect turns on and the contrast, and she looks on the stage and there's Abel Fry hanging from the noose that is also on the stage for some reason. I mean, I don't know. Does this family still live in the town? Where's like the news?
She does.
Saying,
They
like,
talk to her, right?
I know. So like,
yeah, they do. Yeah.
what's going on? So she starts falling to the floor. She has a good performance, and freaking out. And then I guess this is when they decide, all right, we're shutting down the school. We're going to collect everybody into the auditorium where the play is taking place. Hey, don't forget, there's a lot of fun content missing from this episode because you're not listening on Patreon. Head over to patreon.com/cinematic doctrine and support for $3 a month to gain access to uncut episodes with upwards of 40 minutes of bonus content each. You'll thank me later. During this scene, for some reason, Douglas Smith is walking around, sneaking around the stage, and he starts hearing somebody mumbling, and it's Jake Richardson, the elder goth, and he is standing on the stage. The curtains are down, and he finds out that he's not just on the stage. He's standing where the noose is. The first thought Catherine and I said was, why would they build an operable noose on stage of a school.
Yeah, it's a real noose.
Right?
It's completely
bad.
ridiculous.
And Douglas Smith takes the hard route and tries to climb up the gallows instead of just going to the stairs to try and say, don't do it,
He's overcome with emotion. He's not thinking straight.
He's like, you have so much to live for. And the guy says, Abel Fry, he took my girlfriend. He didn't go for the one I wanted to. I want to talk to him. If I can go to him, implying kill himself, then maybe I can speak with him. And Douglas Smith is like, the spirit, you're not listening to the right spirit. The right spirit. It's very bizarre.
Yeah,
yes.
I like these framing his issue as like he needs to talk to management and smooth over this clear issue of communication about what he wants.
Did you guys also notice his face had like all these little drawings on it?
Yes. When did he do that?
I was like,
I don't know.
right?
Quickly after she freaked out.
He came up with this plan very quickly. Like there was almost no processing. He's like, oh, this is what I'm gonna do, and he just like instantly goes into
time to put on my time to use a noose paint on my face.
He's like, I saw David Keith with the upside down cross on his head, and I thought that was really cool. Right before he pointed a shotgun at a child.
For a brief, one-handed too. For a brief second, I thought they were doing a thing where like once you become possessed, you start manifesting like symbols on your body or something for like brief second. Then I realized that that's not a lore that was established earlier, or maybe it is. I don't know.
I know all the cool stuff that could have been there, like neat set stuff, but for some reason the curtains then are lifted.
Yes,
I don't know.
I thought this was a dream sequence. I swear, I was like, oh no, he's hallucinating.
So bizarre.
It's not. It's an MTV music video that makes suicide look cool.
Yeah.
It's so stupid.
Oh my gosh.
It's really terrible. So
it's just like a cut version of Last Resort by Papa Roach.
The curtains rise and everyone in the crowd stands up, and Catherine and I couldn't figure out if they were saying do a backflip or like the equivalent of like seeing someone standing on a building.
Yeah, why did they I thought they think it was part of the play.
It is literally, when we criticize Halloween Ends, as like, why is Haddonfield just not responding to the fact that they caused a man to commit suicide? After this scene takes place, nothing happens, and I'm going to describe it to you, where he's on the stage, he's got the noose around his neck, he hasn't jumped off. Everyone in the crowd, the entire school body, maybe not the parents and teachers, I don't know, but everyone seems to be singing "Do It," and then the entire Veritas Project runs up as if to be like Tommy Wiseau going, "Are you okay, Denny?" and just like tries to help this kid off of the noose. It's really, really bizarre.
That was my question.
But all while this is happening, a new metal song is playing, and it just does these jump cuts and fades, and it's like a Star Wars transition scene. It's so weird.
I was gonna say, where are the teachers? Where was the faculty?
Where are the
during
real
this
guidance
whole thing?
counselors?
Because as a teacher, like, I am not allowed to leave my students for any reason. So like, even if I have to go to the bathroom, I have to ask one of the aides that we have in the hallway, or just maybe another teacher that might be on a break, and just like, hey, can you watch them for 30 seconds? So it's just like the fact that there's no faculty, but all the students are in there makes absolutely no sense. And even if the faculty were in there and maybe we just didn't notice them, they're just standing there. Like nobody rushes to do anything where a child is literally about to jump.
Yeah.
It's just
where's
what
the
is
drama
happening?
teacher? Where are the stagehands? How did he get on stage?
Where's the counselor who is part of the Veritas Project?
Right, the guidance counselor. Why didn't she intervene and try to like talk to this kid? Because earlier in the movie, I think that was something that just came to me earlier in the film, after that scene where the two get into like the two kids, Elijah and Elisha, get like in their spy suits then their spy gear, and then there's like the creepy like goth kid that sees them and then he leaves. They talk to him as though they like suspect that it's him doing all of this. But then in other parts of the movie, it's like they're still trying to figure out who did it. And I'm just like, didn't you guys suspect him? Are you not investigating more of this? Why didn't you tell your parents? She could have been the guidance counselor, like trying to talk to him and, question him and figure out like what might be going on. And just none of that happened. So I feel like that too, it's like they couldn't decide like how they wanted that to work out.
Yeah, maybe it's a Maybe it's a hippie new age school where they don't believe in teachers, you know?
Yeah.
Just let the kids run free.
It's where maybe goes to an Arrested
Just let them
Development.
make their own choices.
Clearly it's working out so far. But
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
That didn't even click for me. Like there's not a lot of, the only adult intervention we get is the scenes in the principal's office where that's like the only time we see the security guards. I don't know if he just lives in there. And the two parents from the Veritas Project.
Was he a security guard or was he like an actual police officer?
I only see him at the school. I don't know. I have no idea. He's just like a cop. But
I thought he was a police officer because I think in the beginning he was just like, I don't need help.
Oh,
like, we can figure this out on our own.
Because
so I'm like,
you are
why
correct.
are they there?
You are correct because they're talking about how like she's like they come very highly recommended for multiple police precincts. He's like, not my precinct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
So
So I'm just
I
like
stand corrected.
that's a weird dynamic for sure.
So I guess is the Veritas Project publicly known? Like,
Can I
They
apply
seem
to
to
work
be,
there?
like, every-
yeah.
I thought they were like a secret
They're
project.
secret, but they're known by every cop, military agent, teacher, and principal in the country.
And if there's one thing I know about cops is they love Telegram and talking about things all of the time. So I'm pretty sure this Veritas Project has been completely disbanded.
Well,
Oh my gosh.
one principal at a PTA meeting is going to spill the beans, and then it's just going to be everywhere.
Right.
Yeah. So something I neglected to mention, and it doesn't really matter, although I guess if you want to know lore of Melvin Benson, it's the jump scare scene. But earlier, Leighton Meester's character is exploring a like I don't know, like the sewers of the school and finds like a witch's like burrow, and that's
Yeah.
where the jump scare happens. That got me as a kid, but as an adult I was like, well, that's pretty lame. It was just he just opened his eyes, which I think freaked me out as a kid.
I know what you mean.
Because I was just like, how could somebody opening their eyes be so scary? And it's like that to me is like cute to think about. But that, you know, they set up that like, okay, there's this weird like cult witch thing going on where they hang a Barbie doll. Right. So this event happens. The kid almost tries to kill himself, and then he doesn't. And then I don't think we really see him for the rest of the movie until the ending. Want to keep up with various Cinematic Doctrine news? Check out our Twitter at Cinedoctrine. That's CINE Doctrine. Link in the show notes. Oh, we haven't even mentioned Frank Peretti's character.
Yeah, Frank Peretti is a character in this movie. Like I thought he would just be like a Stephen King cameo, but
He's just a character.
Was he the guy that was like really quirky?
Yes.
And like coming up with all the
Theories and
he's the guy that solves the entire problem of the movie too.
Well, I think
Right.
he had extra
Oh.
information because he wrote the story, guys. I don't think that's fair.
You think
Okay.
Frank Peretti is playing Frank Peretti, who's moonlighting as a doctor?
Yeah. He could moonlight worse, so I don't know. It's okay. It's like, but he, it's really bizarre. And I mentioned this previously before the recording, but he acts very much like Stephen King acts in Creepshow. He's very nunk-headed, and it doesn't quite work for the movie because you're really desperate to be scary. You want the movie to be scary, and it's just not.
Oh, I had a complete opposite reaction where he's so like his performance does not match anything else in the movie so much
Right.
that I just immediately pay attention every time he's on screen because his acting is very, very bad. But it's like the only interesting, distinct thing happening,
right? Because
ever.
it's a character. Like it itself is a character. But like, yeah, I was just so like frustrated that the movie wasn't scary. That then, not that I was expecting it to be, but like I want something, right? I want a pulse. I want some blood, and it just doesn't have anything. And this was just like the worst. But he ends up solving the thing that basically like this is spider venom, but it's like combination spider venom. Unfortunately, I forgot to mention earlier, so you listener could have figured out the plot line just then and there. But basically, Leighton Meester's character is when running into Norman a second time, he talks about having all these animals that I guess he just keeps at the school, but he collects from going on mission trips.
Again, would never happen at a school.
You don't have like a weird secret zoo at your school?
Right. First of all, having animals at a school, no.
Yeah.
Probably licensing needed for stuff like that.
Right. I mean, I've heard of like teachers having like a classroom pet. I haven't heard of that happening here in Philadelphia. I mean, maybe
Like
it
a high
is. I
school?
don't know. Or like at a high school, but to have like a whole like a zoo basically of these different like reptiles and spiders. I'm just like, I have never heard of that.
Fatal spiders and dangerous
and
snakes.
Poisonous too. I'm just like, no.
And so all that to say is when this scene happens, it clicks in your head and you go, it's Norman. He's been the one doing it. I can't believe it was Norman Bates the whole time. And he very much actually acts kind of like a Norman Bates character. But he, Light and Meester's character, donning like the suit from Alien to explore.
First of all, where'd she get the suit?
I don't know.
The perks of working for Project Veritas.
I guess.
She ends up going through the vents, and it's as we're learning that spiders are the actual paranormal influence of the movie, of which they're not paranormal at all. More deep lore from Melvin. I think spiders are the least interesting villains, especially when it comes to like fantasy video games or anything. Anytime there's spiders, it's boring to me. So just, it's not scary for me. I don't have arachnophobia. I think spiders are kind of cute and interesting. Even in one of the special features with the spiders, Melanie, you might recall, but Light and Meester is holding a spider and is like, my first reaction is to be scared, but then it's, oh, I want to cuddle and go nap with it. It's cute. So like spiders are not scary. It's only scary to like 12 people. And this movie had a $2 million budget and only made 128,000 in theaters. So you really were chancing that you were getting maybe a quarter of those people were scared of spiders. Anyways, it's spiders. And now spiders are starting to be everywhere. She has to run away from spiders in a ventilation shaft and ends up going to like the ceiling and in the, or no, it's not the ceiling. She's like in like the forbidden realm. I don't know. What is it? The forbidden wing.
The shadow realm.
No, that's a cool movie. I wish that happened. That would have been awesome. No, she ends up running into the Norman character who now has spiders and is like, I'm now going to kill you because you found out my plan, which is like finally some threat, something could happen.
Right. Some reason for her to scream.
And not too late in the movie, you know?
Yeah, not too late. So last 15
right at the end.
minutes, which this movie is it is an hour and 45 minutes. Why
I could not
so
believe
long?
this was an hour and 45 minutes.
Way too long.
It's just nothing happens in the movie. It's just...
It's what makes some of the other like weird scenes even more frustrating because it's like you don't need to pad the movie with a quick aside about prayer in school. Like your movie already, like this movie could have been edited down to a 42-minute episode of like X-Files, basically. Like it has enough material for, again, a television show where you just every week they're at a different location and they're dealing with a different problem. Because there is not enough character intrigue.
Do you think this is picked up for Pureflix? They're going to make a Veritas Project show?
Honestly, like you're joking, but that would be a much better fit for this material.
It would be. Like it would be a better fit.
There's not like this has about as much mystery as like Scooby-Doo, essentially. Like people are getting sick. You think it's a ghost. It's not. It's spiders. Which not the most scintillating plot in the world, but like that might play better in 42 minutes, you know. But
yeah,
it was hour 45.
So Norman's getting all stabby, and Lightmeester's character falls down the shaft and ends up in the witch's lab. And then when she looks up, there's spiders everywhere. She's got her suit on, but it's still scary. Norman ends up coming downstairs again and finds her and cuts a hole in the suit so the spiders can get in. And then he ceremoniously takes one of the spiders and has it bite his chest. And he falls over, and you're like, finally, the first death in the movie. Nope, it's not. Oh, right. Well, yeah. And then
I was going to say, you forgot the gym teacher.
The gym teacher who, he's kind of an antagonist. He lets some kids get bullied, and David Keith is like, hey, man, not cool. And so then he bullies the gym teacher. So I guess that works out.
This plot did not even register in my brain. It's such a small bit of the movie.
It's just vanished. You have no memory of it. If you ever want to forget some trauma, you just have to rewatch Hangman's Curse and then try and meditate on the trauma. And over time, Hangman's Curse will reach into your brain and pull it out.
Yeah, I think this is what happens in the Eternal Sunshine of Spotless Mind. I can't.
That's the device on their head.
It's just a DVD copy of Hangman's Curse.
It's a VR headset that screens the Hangman's Curse. The movie kind of ends. They end up breaking down the wall to the witches thing. They find Light and Meester. The kids there. They show a scene. They play like Amazing Grace over Light and Meester as they pray.
It was Praise God to whom
it's
all
doxology.
Blessings. Doxology.
Yes,
Praise
you're right.
God to whom all blessings flow.
Oh my gosh.
Like that whole like thing. And I thought that was really weird.
Yes, because the movie really isn't that Christian. And then, like, she's praying when she thinks she's going to die and starts singing a song.
She says Psalm 23, where
Yeah.
she says like very, if you told me that this movie was made Christian via like ADR afterward, I would believe you,
believe it.
because some of
Yes.
like the Christian-y elements are so tacked on and sudden. Like it's not really
Yeah.
like laced into the plot or themes of the movie at all. Like there's, again, the after school special aspect is this is mostly about bullying, being an outcast, and suicide. Like that's the main thrust, which that's not bad. Like if you had a series that, again, is at its root, it's Christian, but week to week they tackle basic problems that teenagers like run into, that's perfectly fine. There's lots of other things like that. But this movie, they seem to want to like kind of like via crowbar add Christian elements that don't really change the movie at all. Like that the movie isn't transformed in any way by its inclusion of Christian elements. It's
right.
odd. And I expected, and like it falls in that gray area where I want you to either just be a Christian thing where Christianity and faith are a part of the story and are actually play a part in the resolution of anything. Because the fact that these characters are Christians is incidental to whether or not the problem is solved. Or it's so subtle and or thematic that it doesn't distract from what's happening. And this kind of unfortunately falls into kind of a weird middle ground.
Which is interesting when we live in a post-Conjuring world where like the part of what people also love aesthetically about the Conjuring movies, even as non-Christians, is the fact that they're very Catholic. And like they specifically get the Catholic stuff that's also like Protestant, so it's fine. But like it's like that's part of what makes them really interesting. And then, by not doing that in the movie, it doesn't really work. Did you know Cinematic Doctrine has a blog? Visit cinematicdoctrine.com to read extended thoughts on movies or movie industry news from our contributors. Plus, you can find our podcast on there too. But it turns out everybody's fine. It's not that they really pull your chain about it, but they have that scene and then they cut to like a picnic. So immediately you go, okay, it's a good scene. It's a happy scene. So obviously she's safe. But they really wait a while to show that she's just in a cast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they didn't do like a scene where like they're at home and maybe like the music, there's no music and it's kind of rainy out. So like all the aesthetics tell you it's something dreary.
Or a hospital, right? Where they're waiting to find out what happens and she just gets wheeled out in a wheelchair.
Right.
Yeah.
They just are at a picnic and everyone's cool. And like the goth kids are not wearing goth clothing anymore.
Which actually upset me.
That upset me as well.
Which means that they love Jesus now.
I was upset because it was just like first of all, they weren't the villains of the story. I mean, yes, they were like sad and they just wanted relief from all the bullying. And yes, they put their hopes in a ghost, which is very disturbed. But they weren't the ones who were actually doing it. So to say that them being goth was like their problem and then not being goth, that means that they're normal again. Yeah. Just kind of makes it seem like there was, I don't know. I kind of just liked that was who they were. And I didn't feel like they had to change. Like they didn't need that character arc because I just felt like that was kind of disappointing.
You're totally right.
Yeah. It's very old school, like Christian media-y where it's, everyone has, it's like they're wearing jerseys. Like they're wearing the team colors for the bad guys. And the visual signifier is now that they dress quote unquote more appropriately.
Yeah, it's clearance Old Navy.
It's the whole really the whole thing with the goth this movie, and I was waiting for this point to talk about it, is like it's definitely, especially again in AG Pentecostal circles, where like I've been told that like people shouldn't even wear darker colors, like in general. Like you don't wear black nail paint, you don't like dress in black at all. Like even if it's not goth, just black clothing because it like looks too dark, It's very old school AG in that way, which like the goth characters are handled so strangely here where like they're kind of bad in that they actively want other kids to die. But the movie also very clearly paints them as sympathetic. Where they're being seduced by some sort of other evil, I guess, Because, and when you're a teenager, you make bad decisions and they can be reformed. Right. But their reformation is all off screen. Like you don't get scenes where they go, you know what? Probably shouldn't have tried to kill the whole football team. They just
Douglas Smith kind of makes fun of him.
It's just like their clothes are different.
Yeah, that's all you get.
After the elder goth is taken down from the noose, Douglas Smith's character kind of goes like, now do you see your spirit's not real, or something. He says something like kind of not nice to him after like just trying to kill himself. It's just the total antithetical opposite of what
they're fumbling the ball, to use more football terminology. Like I can see
I've never heard that one before. Could you explain it to me?
Were there balls in football? I can see the kernel of what they're trying to do, but they're being so, again, vague about it. They're just using the word spirit, like, right? Like they don't even explain. Like there isn't a scene earlier where like the goth kid and him talk about faith or what they believe in or anything.
Which would be interesting.
Yeah, it also would set up that scene. So it makes sense. Instead they're he's weirdly trying to like argue with him while he's in a very bad place.
Yeah,
and it's
which is super nasty.
Not appropriate. It's like, it's the complete antithesis to that scene in the video game Life is Strange. Either of you play that game?
No, I haven't.
No, I've never played it.
I'm big fan of Life is Strange. There's a scene in the game. It's one of the most intense, like, because it's kind of like a Telltale type game. We have to make decisions. There's a dialogue tree. We have to talk a character out of committing suicide. And the character is a Christian. So if you do your due diligence and explore her room and like you find like Bible verses that mean a lot to her, you can like talk to her and mention things from the Bible and talk about like how God loves you and stuff like that. And it plays so much better because you get the sense the character's using like their faith as a way to connect with somebody and help them see like a better way, versus here where he's using the fact that he's at a dark place as a way to like, told you you're wrong.
Yeah,
you know?
like
you fool.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It's very
really
weird.
bad.
And then
It's bad.
Apparently it worked though, because now he's dressing in like a nice shirt and he's not wearing hair dye or whatever. And then the girl is like dating the football player now, I guess, because they're holding hands.
Yeah.
And in the one good setup and callback in the entire movie, there was an earlier scene where the parents talked about how when she first brought home battling Jack Murdoch to her parents, he wasn't really familiar with the whole Jesus stuff, and he didn't know what to do when he said grace. And the same thing happens with Gossip Girl's boyfriend here, which they kind of ruined by pointing it out. He's like, just like you. And I was like, oh, you had an actual nice thing for once. Why did you have to point it out? And then he awkwardly thanks God for how sexy his girlfriend is. And they try to lampshade it to make it less awkward, but it's still weird. Like, even if you don't know anything about Christianity, it's not good to just be like, hey, your daughter's hot. Like in front of someone.
Right. It's just like so awkward.
It's the kind of movie that's made with the sensibility where they think they got the PG-13 because he says the word sexy and not because they have several images of teenagers like hanging themselves. So like, I don't know.
Presumably they get on their van and never see people again because Project Veritas means you have to travel. So I don't know what their relationship is going to be like. But
exactly.
Yeah. But that's a story for another day.
Yeah, that's the end of that's the end of the movie. I guess before we are seriously copying Flophouse right now, but like before we cut into I guess the tiny bit of reviews we found, and then I want to just cover the Devo. How do we feel about this movie on a grand scale apart from just like boring? Like I want to hear what you think, Melanie, first, and then I guess I'll go next.
I know
Dan was
so
gearing up.
It's so boring.
It overrides any other emotions, but please continue.
Right. It was everything I expected it to be. So I wasn't like, there wasn't like this expectation that it was going to be this great movie. I was more curious to see what Christian elements would be in the film, knowing that it was a Christian author, knowing that I was just waiting to see it because in my mind I couldn't visualize a Christian horror film, period. It was just very foreign to me. I didn't think I would be like excited about anything, but I was very disappointed just that there was nothing. Like you said, like Dan said earlier, like it was really just thrown in, like sprinkled in, but had nothing to do with the story. And I feel like it was definitely a missed opportunity because even if the movie had been cheesy or, corny, but still, the God and the gospel and just something was just explained like very clearly and very plainly, I would still like have appreciated that to a certain degree. I know that you guys found it boring. I had a great time. But if I'm going to be honest,
that's good.
I described it as delightfully awful. just because I thought it was it was so bad, but I had so many moments where I got to laugh that I had a good time. Will I ever see it again? No. But
I would lose that mind if you're like, I'm getting the family together to watch it.
I'm going to show all my friends our next movie night. No, I would never recommend this movie to anyone, but most especially because I just wanted there to be like one redeeming quality and that's why I was kind of hoping there'd be like a strong Christian theme. But the only thing that I would say is just that I had a good laugh. There are a lot of good laughs for me.
Yeah, I definitely had some good laughs too. I did not like this pretty much at all. I was actually kind of dreading watching it because I've just been on such a good streak of watching other movies. And then just be like, all right, well, I just got done my last shift before a week off, but I still got to do this in time for the episode. So I guess I got to watch Hangman's Curse tonight. And it was just so dreadful. I was glad to have like a laugh like immediately with the goths on the bench and to find that we all
starts very strong.
Yes, like that was
on a very high note.
That was very appreciated. But it was just so like just bland and stale and like, but I'm watching a horror movie. I want to be scared or suspense or thrill or awe. And so to just watch this and like not get anything fun. I'm even going through like old Best of the Worst from Red Letter Media, and like it's just fun to watch them like watch a bad movie, but then there's a good kill. So there's cool practical effects. And so they're like, yeah, this is fun. Like, yeah, but it's like the rest of the movie sucks, but at least there's this and this. And like, I can't even say that about this. We're like, okay, I get the memory of like the kind of the first horror quote unquote movie I've ever seen. And then I saw Jaws. It was like, whoa, and to like have a jump scare that gets me apart from like a YouTube video of a chair and then like a spooky exorcist face shows up. That's kind of interesting, but like that doesn't matter because the movie doesn't matter because the movie's not very good, has nothing to say. It's so boring to watch. There's nothing interesting. And even the spider stuff at some point, just they keep showing spiders just doing nothing and it's just not interesting. Yeah, this was rough.
They didn't want anyone to step on them.
I know. Yeah, I was stressed about that too. It's just sad if like an animal dies because of a bad movie, let alone a good movie. So it's just like, just bad. So which by the way, I don't think any spiders died. To the listeners,
no, that handler looked like pretty intense. He was like, "You got to be careful."
Yes,
and for the record, I did want to say that the spiders were the scariest thing because I am one of those people where like spiders,
1 out of 3,
absolutely terrify me.
It worked.
I get itchy, and then when they do like the close-ups, it's the legs and then the hairiness of the spiders that just like really freaks me out.
So is that why you watch the spider handling extra? So you're like, I need to actually be scared.
I watched it because I thought we might like talk about it, and I wanted to at least say like I watched it, but I was not comfortable.
You get film cred for that. Yeah, it's
awesome.
Just even because even my wife was like, they're building up that they're hybrid spiders that are more dangerous, and then she goes, oh, it's just tarantulas.
That doesn't,
right.
Like, okay.
Just different sizes, different kinds.
You're hoping for a big spider, like an It?
Yeah, like It, yeah.
Well, they did have the big one, the one that he put on his chest.
Yeah, that was a cool spider. I like the color on it. God do be making good creatures.
Or he'd to become like a spider-human hybrid, like in The Fly, you know?
Yes!
Ooh.
That would be cool.
That'd be a huge turn, like a massive turn in tone for the movie. But
that's why you watch.
But it would have been amazing. I would have loved that to happen.
Me too, because it would elevate it into a level of like cult classic, where like you gotta watch this weird Christian horror movie. Look,
exactly.
The last 5 minutes goes so hard,
makes it all worth it.
Yeah, that would be dope. But how do you feel, Dan?
My feelings, like, we didn't really talk about this much because there's so much stuff to talk about for whatever reason. But like visually and like production wise, this feels like a lower budget like TV show. Like I felt like I was watching like an episode of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer without any of the production values. Like to evoke the best of the worst thing, it reminds me of when they're watching a movie and they show them just sitting there waiting for something to happen because characters are just walking through the endless hallways because of budget restrictions. And that's what this is. Like there's so many like there's so much blandness on screen where the audio is kind of off. Sometimes characters talking and it sounds too echoey because they're not, I don't know if it's how they're mic'd, but they're just in these big empty rooms without anything in them.
There were scenes where it was just quieter than the other scenes. And I like grabbed my remote and I'm already at 90 out of 100. I'm like, what do you want me to do, movie? I can't. I can't do anymore.
And that's
Right.
budget stuff. Like I get that they're not working. They're $2 million is not a lot of money for like what's supposed to be a full like 100-minute movie. But all that can be made up with if the movie had a strong point of view or the characters were good or there's some sort of charm. But there's so little happening on screen. There's no like cake under the frosting in terms of the whole like Christian family youth group watch thing, because there's like the message here is so boilerplate, which is bullying is bad, don't kill yourself. Like that's all they got for messages. Don't mess with spiders, I guess could also be something. But there's so little to even engage with that I have never had so much trouble paying attention to a movie we've watched for this show. And we've watched all kinds of movies. We've watched everything. We've watched other Christian films.
We watched Morbius. That came out this year.
Oh my gosh.
And there's and this was the thing that was so boring. It was so uneventful. It was just like eating like plain crackers over and over again. And occasionally someone will throw water in my face because something weird will happen. And I'll be like, whoa, and it gets my attention. I'm not happy about it, but I'm now paying attention. And then and the best part of it was just this conversation afterwards where we all got to laugh at it together. Yes. So unless you're doing a movie podcast, I don't recommend watching this film.
No, not at all.
And don't start a movie podcast just so you can watch this movie.
It's a very crowded field too. I don't think it's very hard to stand out.
It's not worth it.
And keep in mind, I'm saying all this as both a devout Christian and somebody who likes Frank Peretti. So, it's a bad sign when the actor getting an elongated cameo who does not act is the highlight of the movie for me. So.
Hey again, this episode is part 1 of 2, as the original recording length came in at a whopping 3.5 hours. Search for part 2 in your podcast app, assuming it's out already. Thanks so much for checking out this episode of Cinematic Doctrine. If you enjoyed this episode, consider leaving a review and subscribing to the podcast. And as mentioned before, Cinematic Doctrine has a Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you're opted into a once-a-month movie poll where you decide a movie we discuss on the podcast. There are other unique benefits that come with supporting the podcast, so be sure to check that out at patreon.com/cinematic doctrine. A special shout out to those who support at the Art House Theater tier on Patreon. Thank you so much, Mom, Dad, Melanie, Shirley-Ann, and Thomas. You guys are the best, and your continued monetary support is greatly appreciated. Until next time, stay cool. Want some Cinematic Doctrine swag? You're in luck! We've got 3-inch Cinematic Doctrine logo stickers exclusive for Patreon supporters. Perfect for your travel mug or laptop. Head over to patreon.com/cinematic doctrine, link in the show notes, and choose the Independent Theater tier. Doing so will net you other perks too. But let's be real, the podcast stickers are the coolest perk. So get yourself some podcast stickers by supporting on Patreon.